For 12 years, a father quietly guarded a locked storage unit his late wife made him promise to protect. When his son's wife tried to break in with bolt cutters, the truth finally came out. Documents, journals, and proof of manipulation that revealed who was protecting whom all along. It all began with a storage unit downtown. Richard had rented it years ago, not for old furniture, not for holiday decorations, but for something far more important. It was a safe, climate-controlled space filled with documents, legal papers, financial records, and journals. His late wife, Catherine, had insisted on it. Before she passed, she made Richard swear he would keep it all intact until their son, Michael, was ready. The plan wasn't for furniture. It was for protection. Protection from people who might see Michael not as a son, but as a paycheck. For 12 years, Richard had kept the key, kept the contents secret, and watched over it like a hawk. He never spoke about it to anyone, not even Michael. That is, until the day Michael called him in a panic. It was a Saturday evening, and Richard was visiting his sister Margaret in Boston. The kitchen smelled of roast chicken and fresh bread. Margaret had just poured them both a glass of wine when Richard's phone lit up. Michael's name flashed on the screen. He didn't call unless something was seriously wrong. "Dad, I don't know how to say this." Michael's voice shook. "Sienna, she found the storage unit downtown. She's there right now, with bolt cutters." Richard froze for a moment. 12 years. 12 years of waiting for someone like this to appear. The wine glass in his hand stopped midway to his lips. His chest tightened, not with fear, but with anticipation. He had prepared for this. "Has she gotten inside yet?" he asked, keeping his voice calm, though Margaret was staring at him with concern. "I don't think so," Michael said. "The manager is stalling, saying he needs your authorization first. But Dad, she's furious. She's screaming about her rights, about family." Richard's mind raced. Everything they'd ever done to protect Michael, to safeguard the assets and the legacy Catherine left behind, was at risk. He stayed calm. "Call the police immediately," he instructed. "Tell them someone is trying to break into my private storage unit without permission. Then call our lawyer, James Reynolds. His number's in my desk drawer at home. Tell him it's time." Michael hesitated. Time for what? "You'll see soon enough. Don't let her get inside that unit. There are things we need to discuss. Things your mother asked me to protect until the right moment." Richard booked the next flight back to Chicago immediately. Margaret watched him, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. She'd known Catherine well, had been at her side in those final weeks, and knew exactly why Richard was so careful. "It's happening," she said quietly. The girl finally showed her true colors. Richard nodded, his hands steady as he typed in his credit card details for a flight leaving in just 4 hours. He remembered Catherine's words from years ago, her final instructions. She had anticipated someone like Sienna. "Someone will come along who sees Michael as a resource, not a person. You need to be ready." Richard had followed her plan meticulously. The storage unit wasn't just a collection of papers. It was a fortress of evidence. Trust documents, wills, insurance policies, investment records, journals tracking every suspicious action Sienna had ever taken. Every red flag, every manipulative tactic, meticulously documented for 3 years. When he first met Sienna, Richard hadn't suspected her at all. Michael had brought her to a Sunday family dinner, glowing with the excitement of new love. Sienna had arrived impeccably dressed, designer clothes, perfect hair, and a polite smile that hid her calculations. She'd asked casually about the value of Richard's properties, pretending it was small talk. Richard remembered thinking, who asks about property value at the first dinner? Over the next several months, her tactics became clear. She'd subtly pressured Michael to involve her in financial planning, under the guise of building a future together. She planted seeds of doubt, trying to make Richard appear secretive or controlling. and Michael, blinded by love, didn't notice. When Michael announced his engagement, Richard's heart sank. The wedding was extravagant, far beyond what Michael could afford. Sienna had pushed for a luxury venue, expensive flowers, and multiple dresses. Michael had scrimped to pay his share while Sienna calculated how much she had learned about the family's wealth. Richard had anticipated this. He had ensured the prenuptial agreement and trusts were airtight. He had made sure Michael's inheritance remained separate from marital assets, untouched and protected. Sienna had signed the prenup, but she underestimated the man who had been watching every move. After the wedding, the real trouble began. Sienna started complaining about Michael's condo, suggesting they move in with Richard instead. She tried to gain access to his space, his home, his assets. Richard shut that down immediately. "The house stays as it is. When I'm gone, it's Michael's. While I'm alive, it's mine." That's when he started documenting everything. Every word, every action, every manipulation attempt went into a journal, stored securely in the unit downtown. 3 years' worth of notes, screenshots, evidence, a complete record of Sienna's efforts to control and access the family assets. The flight back to Chicago was tense. Richard replayed everything in his mind. The first dinner, the subtle hints, the prenuptial agreement, every warning Catherine had given. By the time he landed, he was ready. He went straight to the storage unit, coordinated with the police and his lawyer, and prepared to confront the truth. Arriving home, he saw Michael's car and Sienna's luxury SUV in the driveway. Michael looked exhausted, worn thin by stress. Sienna approached the house, confident, ready for confrontation, her casual outfit belying the tension radiating from her. Inside, they sat like pieces on a chessboard. Richard in his leather recliner, Michael on the edge of the sofa, Sienna at the far end, posture perfect, tone sharp. Sienna accused Richard of controlling and hiding things from them, trying to take away transparency. Richard calmly laid out the truth. "The documents in that storage unit are not secret for secrecy's sake. They're secure for Michael's future. Everything Catherine and I built is for him, not for someone who would try to manipulate him." The room went silent. Sienna tried to argue, but Richard had proof. He pulled out the journal, the printouts, the evidence he had collected for 3 years. Every Instagram message, every subtle move, every attempt to pressure Michael into financial decisions, all documented. Michael's eyes opened to the truth. The manipulation, the deceit, the exploitation, it was all laid bare. Sienna's confident facade began to crack, the control she thought she had slipping away as Richard calmly walked through every incident. By the end of the night, Michael understood. Richard had not been controlling, he had been protecting. Every precaution, every document, every warning, every journal entry, all of it had been to safeguard him from someone who saw him as a resource rather than a person. Sienna was left speechless, exposed, and powerless. Richard had finally enforced the boundary, the one Catherine had entrusted him to uphold. He had waited, watched, and prepared. And in the end, justice wasn't revenge. It was protection, the quiet kind that requires patience, foresight, and unwavering love. Richard's story is a reminder that sometimes the quietest people are the ones who bear the heaviest responsibility. That protection doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like careful observation, preparation, and waiting for the moment when action is finally necessary. And that night, as he sat back, Michael by his side, Richard felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of peace. For the first time, he knew his son was truly safe, and that all those years of patience and vigilance had been worth it.